Flesh and Blood's newest format, Silver Age, features about 58 different heroes, and so with so many different options, it can feel pretty daunting as a player to pick what you want to try. The good news of the format is that most of the decks are very cheap. It's very easy to swap between decks and try a bunch of different things, or just try them out with online resources like Talishar. But the goal of today's video is going to help narrowing down some different archetypes that you might want to try by understanding the different classes and heroes so that you can understand the overall card pool a bit better. But for the sake of simplicity, for new players looking to get into the format, these three archetypes are going to be aggressive, defensive, and combo decks. The easiest way to think about this are decks that want to win the game by mainly resolving their cards on offense, resolving them on defense, or are specifically trying to line up a specific combination of cards for a very particular kind of turn. If we want to make this an incredibly long video, we could break down multiple different additional archetypes, sub-archetypes. Many of these heroes will fit into 2 of these categories, if not more. Some of them could even arguably be all 3. So it's important for you as a player to go actually try these heroes yourself if any of them feel like they're interesting to you, and you might find niche things that you actually really enjoy about the hero, even if it's not in the category that you would expect to enjoy. And just because something is labeled as an aggressive deck doesn't mean it plays the same way as something else, because a lot of these are blending different heroes and classes and talents. And these are all things that add up to vastly different play experiences, even if the overall umbrella they fall under has a common thread. We're going to start with our aggressive heroes. And so our aggressive heroes are going to mainly be composed of the Mechanologist heroes, the Rune Blades, Ninjas, and then some mix of Ranger, Warrior, Assassin, along with some other classes. I would like to really specifically highlight that these are decks that want to proactively play their cards to resolve their win conditions. In order to win with these decks, you are more often than not needing to resolve cards out of your hand on offense by saying no blocks. And the goal of these decks is trying to accelerate the game pace, so that way you have the shortest time possible during the match. Some of these decks can scale into the endgame, but these are decks that can put the gas pedal on very quickly in a match. I would like to highlight the mech heroes, the Rune Blades, the Ninjas, and the Rangers. These are decks that fire off raw damage at the opponent. They're usually very explosive, can scale their damage very well, so the sum of their 4 cards is worth more in total than if they were, individually taken in isolation. So they have cumulative damage that kind of scales based on their hand size. And then there are some decks that play aggressively, but for different goals. So you have decks like the Assassins that want to play aggressively so that way they can resolve their disruption. Levian needs to fuel her graveyard in her banish. Fang and Dory want to be resolving all of their combat tricks. Viserai can play a mixed hybrid kind of game style, same with Scurf. And then finally, we have our 2 board state decks here. We have Dromai and Gravy Bones. In order for these decks to build out their board states, you need to be aggressively playing cards to the field, whether that's Gravy discarding allies and then playing them, or Dromai needing to resolve the dragons and attacks from a hand to give them go again. So these are decks that, while they are board state, they need to proactively be playing cards throughout a match in order to actually be facilitating their game plan. And so if you're the kind of player that wants to try to sequence the puzzle by resolving most of your cards from hand and usually saying no blocks during your opponent's turn, these are decks that I think would be worth checking out. Where this comparison breaks down is when you start thinking about what kind of decks might actually be sort of defensive but also aggressive. We would probably consider these to be like mid-range style decks. In my opinion, I think there's some that really fit into this category. That's going to be most of the Brutes, Florian, and Prism. Very easily block with their whole hand, but can also convert most of their hand to damage. So I think these are notable exclusions to the rule where you can really start to see where these categories start to blend a little bit. And so if you're the kind of person that wants to play something that can flex in between 2 different game plans really easily, I think these would be really good heroes to look at. But if we want to think about specific defensive heroes, then I think we're going to mainly be looking at the Guardian and the Warrior class. The point of these is going to be resolving your cards on defense. So you want to be blocking your opponent's cards to deny them the damage that they're trying to send at you. And this can be for a couple different reasons. This could be because your card efficiency is really high. And so this would be like having a very efficient weapon, having good late game scaling, or being able to present fatigue as an angle. So actually running your opponent out of cards until there's just nothing left in their deck. Decks that I think present fatigue really successfully are going to be heroes like Guardians, Decimator Great Axe, Olympia, Teklavos, Tough Nut, and Arachne. These are all heroes that can very comfortably try to run your opponent out of cards just by blocking, using good armor, and presenting a raw efficient weapon, or in the case of Arachne, presenting cards that actively destroy cards from your opponent's deck. Not every single defensive hero is going to be fatigue orientated. There are some in here that just play defensively by nature of the card pool. Assassin and Wizard here are trying to resolve lots of combat damage, but because they present a lot of disruption, specifically in the case of Iceland Renew and Azuri, they naturally slow the game pace down, and so they kind of fit in that defensive category because they naturally want to control the pace of the game, deaccelerate the aggressive player, so that way they can have this kind of endgame push. In the case of Icelander, being able to get frostbites, it naturally slows the game down. You even have some dual-handed warriors like the two Kasais, where they are defensive, but only because they don't have a lot of go-again conversion. So naturally, you're going to draw hands where you are required to block with cards, and you play very efficiently with only 2 cards per turn. They would also probably fit somewhere in the mid-range kind of category like Florian or Prism or the Brutes. And then specifically board state heroes that play defensively are going to be heroes like Enigma or Teklavasen. Protecting your life total is part of the actual game plan. So Enigma is a really good example, being able to create ward weapons that can attack every single turn, while Gravy Bones and Dromai need to be resolving cards from their hand to be building out their board state. Make a Spectral Shield as early as turn 1, and then just protect it by blocking and then re-attacking with that Spectral Shield every single turn. Finally, our last category of combo. Playing your combo is how you win your game. There's going to be a specific sequence of cards or a particular power turn that is going to catch you up. So you're going to have turns where you do almost 0 damage, and then you're going to have turns where you're going to deal over 20 damage. You are looking for your window to execute a very specific game plan and blow up your opponent, basically. Heroes like Dio play items off the top of the deck and can sculpt incredibly powerful boom grenade combo turns. Lexi with Death Dealer and Snapshot can chain together huge go wide turns. The Wizards play combo that also involves evasive damage. And then the 2 ninjas of Zen and Katsu both care about combo playlines. Chain and Vincent can sculpt very particular endgame states with rune gate cards, potentially triple rune gating if they are set up appropriately. 3 heroes I want to point out in particular are going to be Pleiades, Lyeth, and Bolton. These are decks that aren't traditional combo decks, but play really well with that on-turn, off-turn style of game plan, where they can set up and then have incredibly explosive turns. Pleiades and Lyeth being Aura Guardians that involve setting up auras that later break on a future turn to give a buff to your next attack, and Bolton stashing cards into Soul to be paid off to give go again to a bunch of different attacks within the turn. Hopefully this video gave you an idea of all the different heroes in the format and what you might want to try. There's so many different things to do in this format, and all these heroes are going to play differently, so it's important that you actually try out the decks for yourself and start to formulate your own opinions over what kind of game plans you like and what play style you prefer. To help you out here, I have a deck list spreadsheet that's going to be linked in the description. It's going to have an example deck list for every single hero listed here. I also have a playlist on the channel that's going to cover the deck list, so I'll be explaining more in-depth process behind the heroes, as well as usually having gameplay examples, so that way you can actually see how the heroes play. And hopefully that can get you a head start into the format. That way you can go down to your locals and enjoy playing some Silver Age. Until next time, thank you for watching.